Good Monday morning, everybody. I love that little intro. That little tune makes me literally dance in my chair. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend and you are ready to tuck into a little bit of crochet. We have another little something to add to our January unblanket calendar project, if you're so inclined. So again, this year's calendar unblanket project is very much about doing the unblanket thing. You can attach them all into a blanket if you want. It'll be a nice big blanket because these are 12 by 16 inch rectangular pieces. But we are all about creativity and design and zero pressure. So if you get one done and that's all you do this year, then hey, you did a little bit of unblanket work for 2025. If you do the whole thing, awesome. This is also all about eating up those scraps. I've got all my scraps divvied up into bags. I am ready to go and having a lot of fun trying out some new techniques. This is how we're going to do it. So before I get started, I want to thank Nico for gifting a membership. Thank you, Nico, gifting Ninja Nico. I also want to say hello to Jojo, who's been a member for 21 months with a membership milestone. She says, hope all are safe and warm. I concur. Can't wait to see what Jayda has for us today. Have a wonderful Monday. Yes, have a wonderful Monday. I think you're going to like today's concept. It's kind of cool. And Kimberly, member for 33 months. Thank you, Kimberly. Says, good morning, Jayda and Mr. InStitches. And good morning, Kimberly. Good morning, everybody. All right, what are we doing today? I thought, since in my brain, I'm sort of thinking of this year's calendar unblanket project as literal calendar pages, it would be kind of fun to make a text box that you could then put anything you wanted on. I am going to add January, literally the name, title, January, to the top of my unblanket installment. You don't have to do this, but I thought a little text box applique would be really handy because you could make up a whole bunch in different colors if you wanted to. And you could just have them on hand because then you can embroider or chain stitch or even put other little tiny appliques onto it. It basically becomes a little, it's like when you're scrapbooking and you want like a background to highlight something. This little text box is going to allow us to put a title, a name, a signature, anything you want in it. I've got a nice sort of plain regular sized one that fits neatly inside the confines of this frame, but technically any little text box that has a foundation chain less than 37 chains will fit inside your frame for your entire thing, and you can make it as big or as small as you want. We've got a text box applique pattern included in the unblanket rectangle canvas pattern, so it's part of that main pattern. There's a text box applique. I think it's on like page 4 or something. And that's the pattern I'm going to use today. And I am going to embroider the word January on it. So I was going to pick a color from my stash for the actual text box. I don't really want the box itself to stand out. And you might be thinking, well, why bother with a text box at all? Why not just embroider, why not just put it right directly onto your canvas? And that's a great question. If you don't want anything showing through to the back, then a text box allows you to create a little applique. It's just a simple rectangle. Be as messy as you want on the underside of it as you're embroidering or chain stitching or whatever you want to do. And then when you stitch down that applique to your canvas, nothing will show through, and your embroidery work and everything any of the mess that you might have will be hidden underneath the applique as opposed to showing through to the back of the canvas. That said, if you don't want to bother with a text box, but you want to like chain stitch or embroider or something, go right ahead. This is your project. But I thought for those of us little neat freaks who love to be able to flip something over and just see like a plain background, none of my stitching from my appliques are showing through. So that's kind of the idea behind the text box. And also in my brain, I think of this like a great big scrapbooking project. And I love to create boxes to highlight other little things like little sayings or words or stuff like that. So that's what's behind today's little project. I'm thinking I'm going to go with a dark blue just to kind of keep the consistency up here, and it'll also make my word January show up. I'm thinking about doing that in white. So that's the plan. Hello, Rose. Rose has been a member for 17 months, popping into the chat with a membership milestone. Says, hope everyone is warm and happy this Monday AM. And I agree. I hope everybody is. I certainly am. I've got my 5.5 millimeter hook, also known as an I or a 9. I pulled out a whole bunch of my scraps because now that they're all divvied up into bags, pulling them out is just this super enjoyable process, because when I'm like, yeah, I don't need that, I just slip it back into the little bin. I think I'm going to go with, I've got this satiny navy blue that, and I'm not usually a big fan of the satin yarns, the satin acrylics, or the acrylic yarns that kind of have satin or super soft in the title. The reason being, not because I don't love the way they feel, it's just that before you've even done anything with them, they start to fluff and pill, and I really don't like that. So I do have quite a number in my stash, and this is the kind of stuff I want to use up in this year's project, because little fluffy pilly bits of yarn kind of add to the textured element of this year's project. So I'm going to go with blue. I've got this lovely navy blue. I'm just going to put this to the side. You don't need very much yarn for the text box. Again, it's a real scrap project. We're using the single crochet stitch instead of the double crochet because we want a nice thick stitch thing in order to do some embroidery or chain stitching on. It gives you a firmer kind of canvas, miniature canvas to work on. So single crochet. By the way, I've got my little snowman here. I just wanted to mention that if you didn't want to do a polar bear, or you had other kind of January imagery in your head, we do have a snowman pattern. That tutorial is linked in the description box down below. And for all of our community members who are following from a much warmer place, again, whatever January means to you, if you want to go with beach and sky for January, because this is the time of year you're on the beach, you may not want to put a snowman on your beach, but we've got plenty of appliques that suit any time of the year. And I'm pretty sure Mr. InStitches linked our applique playlist in the description box. If he didn't, I'll make sure it's there at the end of the tutorial. So just don't feel confined by whatever imagery I'm using, because that's not what this year's about. It's about self-expression, using up your stash, and having fun. Chief among those, having fun. Gonna have a little sip of my coffee, and here we go. Yarn in hand, let's create a slip knot on our hook. We are going to chain 15. You can chain more if you want a longer text box. Just remember, if you're using the text box for the unblanket rectangles, your foundation chain should be less than 37 chains, and that way you'll ensure that it fits inside the frame of your canvas. I like 15. It's makes a nice sort of not too long rectangle. So there's 15. If you want it longer, go ahead. If you want it shorter, that's okay too. But I feel like this will be a good size to write January on. But everybody's tension's a little bit different. So if you feel you need something a little longer, that's fine. Again, we're using a single crochet stitch. So we're going to skip the first chain from the hook and single crochet into the second chain and single crochet in each chain across. So I will have 14 single crochet stitches at the end of row 1. However many foundation chains you decided to go with, single crochet into the second chain from the hook and in each across, and you will have one less single crochet stitches than you had foundation chains. So if you did 36 foundation chains, you'll have 35 single crochet stitches. If you did 20 foundation chains, you'll have 19 single crochet stitches, and so on. So that's 14 stitches for me because I started with 15 chains. Chain 1 turn, single crochet in each stitch all the way across. Your chain 1 does not count as anything. It is just a turning chain. It doesn't count as a stitch. So you do single crochet directly into the first stitch and in each stitch all the way across. So something to keep in mind if you're new to crochet. And I'm going to chain 1 at the end of every row, single crochet all the way back. And I'm going to do this for a total of 7 rows. Again, you can make your text box as large as you want. First, by adjusting the foundation chain number, and secondly, by adjusting the number of rows. So if you want to write an entire paragraph for some reason, then you can make yourself a nice big text box. If you just want to sign your initials, you might want to make a super small little text box, like a little 2" by 2" squared box. Or if you just want to sketch in the name of the month like I'm doing, this should be large enough. And I'm going to show you some fun tips and tricks on how to do embroidery especially embroidering words. The embroidery itself is pretty easy. You just think in terms of a digital clock. You know, reduce a letter to straight lines. Reduce a letter to straight lines. Write it down, sketch it out at first if you feel you need to, but reduce those letters, and numbers for that matter, to straight lines, much easier. So as many straight lines as you need in order to get the look of the letter or the number. That's how you embroider it, making sure that it fits neatly and centered on an actual text box. That can be the trick. So I've got a little trick for that. Everybody's talking about Joann's actually having gone bankrupt for real. I think we all sort of saw that coming, didn't we? Typically when a company says, hey, we're bankrupt, but we're gonna fix things. And then, like, I don't know if you guys saw this too, but on Pinterest, I just kept seeing ad after ad after ad of Joann's going out of business, going out of business. I thought, yeah, that doesn't look like a company that's busy restructuring. So I'm really sorry to hear about that because I never once managed to get to a Joann's. I've never been south of the border at a time when I could go shopping at a Joann. So that's a bit of a bummer. That's an entire chapter in the world of craft that I will have missed. All right, I'm gonna have to pause at the end of this row and count them up because when I get chit-chatting, I don't often rest and stop to count. Let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I need one more row. That was quick. 7 rows at 14 stitches each. And then I'm gonna put a little border on, which will give it a little bit more height, a little bit more length, and also make it neater and easier to stitch. The border is optional. You do not have to add a border, but I just thought if it's single crochet all the way around, I'll be able to stitch it down. It'll look nice and neat and tidy. So there we go. That is my 7 rows. That's my little text box. So I'm thinking in terms of, you know, scrapbooking. If I would snip out a little like rectangle of pretty paper because I was going to put like a little white note or a little like typed out text message on it. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of a scrapbook style text box. Hello, Bethany. Miss B in the house with a sweet super chat. Thank you. Says, hi guys. I'm thinking about putting mountains as I make my canvas. What do you think would be the best way to add it? Babies are sleeping for now. That's good. Mama can get in some crafting. Yes, so a couple of options for you. One, you could do a full-blown Fair Isle style where you sketch it out and then do the A-B thing where you go, you know, A is your sky color, B is your mountain color, let's say, and you go, you know, A, and then B, 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 A, B, 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 A, B, 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 you know what I'm saying? To kind of create like a triangle, like get that sort of mountainous effect. You could do that layered. Always sketch these things out. So you could totally do the Fair Isle style thing, 1. 2, you could do the folk art calendar blanket style like we did, where we just did sort of gentle gradation where you would, in between the 2 green, you know what, and I'll link that, I think that was the February tutorial, might have been. It was the upper part of the folk art blanket from 2019 where we started to create the rolling hills. And it was just a very simple, like from A to B and then B back to A and then A back to B and then B back to A and then A back to B, back and forth. And you just kind of got like a little hill going. So that's really easy too. The other thing you might want to do is just make a big kind of grayish blob with like a little bit of like staggered tops to it. And then you could embroider or chain stitch in some actual highlights to kind of really sell the idea that you've got like mountains going. I also want to do something with mountains down the road. I'm not really sure how, but I have been playing with a few ideas. Obviously, those are the ideas I've been playing with. So if you want to give one of those a try and you like the way it looks, for heaven's sakes, show me. I'm probably going to go the way of the folk art blanket. We make note of that. And there's actually some like kind of tips on how to do that in the canvas written pattern for this year's unblanket rectangle, if you want to add a little bit of interest. And that's just basically alternating between A and B, but always sketch it out first. Draw your little rectangle, sketch it in. It makes it a lot easier to follow. And because you're creating a landscape background, don't worry about exact stitch counts. You know, nature doesn't follow exact stitch counts all the time, but I mean, like something that looks organic, or something like where you've just kind of like, you're just sort of messing with the colors, an organic creation of mountains, it'll sell it. So don't worry about being super exact. Alternating between a few colors to get like a little sort of a triangular look, I think that'll work. Little sip of my coffee. Okay. I'm going to chain one and turn, and I'm going to start with the little border for this. I'm going to single crochet into the first stitch twice. So that's like my little corner. So 2 little single crochet in the first stitch. I'm going to single crochet all the way back across row 7 to the last stitch, and I'll work 2 single crochet in there, because my 2 single crochet in all 4 of the corners will just make like the smallest little like turn of a corner. I'm not trying to make anything fancy that stands out here. I'm making a mini canvas. So that's 2 single crochet in that corner stitch. And now I'm just going to single crochet in each row edge all the way down. And this is, you can work around the edge stitch. You can split a stitch that's there if it's more comfortable. Doesn't matter. This is so easy peasy. Do not overthink this. Just single crochet in each row edge. It doesn't matter if you get each row. It doesn't matter if you have like 7 here and 8 there. You're trying to go for something that's even, but don't overthink it. In the first foundation chain, work 2 single crochets and then single crochet in each foundation chain across. So this is the simplest of little borders. Border rows aren't super important. If it's the last row, don't worry about it. As long as it looks even, and remember when you're sewing this down, you can sew it down in such a way that, you know, if it looked crooked in your hand, you can sew it so that it doesn't look crooked on the blanket. So don't overthink these things. Just whip them up, whip them up, whip them up. 2 single crochet in the last foundation chain. I'm going to work over top of the short tail and single crochet in each row edge all the way up the side. Again, I am not doing anything fancy. I am just looking for the next row edge. I'm sticking my hook in there. I'll have about 7 because that's how many rows there were. And then when I'm back to the top, join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet. And I'm going to leave a nice long tail so that I can sew this on. Somebody asked me, how do you know how long a tail to leave? And this is what I kind of do. Because I whip stitch my appliques, I take my yarn and I go around once, I go around twice, and I go around 3 times. And I figure that's usually enough to stitch all the way around. And then I give myself just a little bit more, because I don't like having to knot in yarn while I'm sewing. It's annoying. Fasten off. I'm going to finish weaving in that little short tail, and then I'm going to start embroidery. But before I do that, a quick question to everybody. Should I use a thin, plain, white yarn to write January, or should I use something a little more interesting, a little textured, a little thicker? I have a lot of different options here. What do you all think? That's it for my blue, so I'm going to put that back in my little thing. All right, and while we're discussing, I'm going to grab a piece of paper. So we're seeing thicker, thicker. Okay, you know what? I've got some options. I'll pull them out and you guys can take a look. This, if you're zipping along with me, this is what I do. So I want to write the word January. So I'm going to mark off the edge of my actual applique. So that's about, in real time, the width of my applique. And then I write down here the word January. No pressure, so that I know that I haven't spelt it wrong, because I notice when I do this, one of the #1 things I do when I am embroidering, or if I'm, you know, trying to space out letters, is that while I'm busy thinking about the design or the spacing, I forget about the spelling and I'll miss a letter. So I don't want to do that. January is 7 letters, which is perfect because an odd numbered word always gives you a middle letter. So I would do U right in the middle, and then A, R, Y, and I spell it backwards, N, A, and J. So now I've got January spelt properly, sketched out. Doesn't have to look like this exactly, but I've got it sketched out inside the box, knowing that that is the size of the framework. So when I go ahead to do this, I know roughly how big I need to make my J, how big I need to make my A, my N, etc. So while I'm stitching along with my yarn needle and my yarn, I'll have a pretty good template to follow, and I'll be less likely to have to squish any of my letters together. It'll look very even. But if you're new to this and you're really worried, you can do each of your letters individually and just literally do what I did with the writing. Start by embroidering your U, and then maybe do A-R-Y, and then go backwards, N-A-J. Entirely up to you, however you feel sort of like strongest, but that's how I'm going to do it. So I've sketched it out, and I know now basically how wide I need to make my letters. So let's pick some white yarn. I've got this nice thick sort of slippery shiny yarn. It's that Hometown from Lion brand. I really like this stuff. It's nice and thick. It's like a, I guess it's a 6. And I thought if I used a nice thick yarn, it would really show up. So you see that, like, there's a J. That looks really nice. I like that. But that's one option. I've also got, hi Beth! Beth's been a member for 14 months with a membership milestone. Beth says, happy Monday, loving the unblanket concept. Thank you, me too. I love the unblanket concept. It's the no pressure way to make a blanket, or just a bunch of fun projects, or only one. Hey, whatever floats your boat, whatever you've got time for, whatever the scraps allow. That's what 2025 is all about. I have one thin-ish yarn with a bit of sparkle, since you're asking, Carrie, but it's this white cotton, and it's got like a little bit of tinsel that runs through it. So I don't know what, that's a contender. So I've got plain white. I've got the leftover white with little blue flecks in it that I used for the border, so that would be a nice tie-in. I've got white with a bit of sparkle, and then I've got the nice thick creamy white that was the Hometown. So I've got 4 nice options here. So A is the thick Hometown yarn, B is the white with the blue fleck in it, C is just plain old white, and D is white with a bit of sparkle. Mr. InStitches is a little busy at the moment wrangling the dog, so instead of doing a poll, how about we just say A, B, C, or D, and I'll take it from the chat while I sip a little coffee. So I got an A, I got a D, I got a D, I got a C, I got a D, I got a B, I got an A, I got a white with blue flecks, that's the B. B, A, D, C, D, 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 B, 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 D. Woo! Lots of D's. Lots of D's. Lots of D's and B's. C is best for chain stitch, says Charlie. Aha! But I'm not going to do the chain stitch. But if you were going to use the chain stitch, I would recommend C or B, because these are both thin, plain acrylic yarns. So yes, if you're going to do the chain stitch, nice and plain would be a good idea. But I'm embroidering. B, B, C, C, B, B, C, B, C. Oh my gosh, it's all over the place. Not very many A's though, so most people don't really like the idea of the thick yarn. Okay. So I'm seeing B's, more C's, lots of D's. Nico says A. C, B, D. All right. D, D, D. Well, if I count them up, which takes me like at a glance, I see primarily D to start, lots of D's. And then it switches to B, back to D, B, D, 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 little B, little C, mostly D. So I guess D. I guess we're going to go with D. So that is the cotton white with a bit of sparkle in it. Sure. The chat has spoken. I will do that. All right, I'm gonna put those back. Let's use this cotton. So has a little bit of sparkle to it, just a little bit, which is kind of appropriate given that it's a January snowy weather. I don't know if you can see the sparkle a little bit there. Mr. Stitches is on his phone now. Thanks, honey. She is a handful. I can hear her racing around out there. So there's a little bit of sparkle there. And I think that's a good choice. So if I'm patient, because it does like to split, I'm going to cut myself an extra long length because I'm going to do all of these letters in one go. I'm not going to do them individually. Oh, look at this. Look at this lovely little messy knot. Huh, how do you like that? I don't know what the heck that is, but I'm cutting it out. All right. That will go in the garbage, I'm afraid. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to thread it up, make sure that my tinsel has not separated from my yarn. And if you had embroidery floss that was sparkly or metallic, you could hold a strand of that alongside a regular bit of yarn, and that would also be a nice answer to adding a bit of sparkle or even just another little bit of color. That's kind of fun too. So I'm going to use my template January, and I'm going to embroider onto my little text box. So January, I'm going to start with J, and I'm not going to make it very big. And I'm going to, this is the front, this is the back. I'm going to bring my yarn in from up top. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't usually cross the top of my J. I'm going to start down at the foot and see if I want to cross it by the time I get to the top. This yarn also wants to sort of spin. So I'm going to leave a tail out the back so that I can knot my ends together later. And now I do my best to kind of hold the piece I'm working on and kind of hold it, not tight, but just hold it flat. So while I'm working, I can kind of see what I'm doing. So a J obviously has a little bit of a curve to it. So I'm going to, again, think in terms of straight lines. I'm going to try and do as many little straight lines as possible, some short, some long. And of course, you can't come back up through the same place that you just came out of. Otherwise, you'll pull your yarn up and out of the way. So I'm going to, again, I have to make this a narrow little J. I'm going to come up a stitch over and then do a back stitch. I go back towards where I just came out of. And it doesn't matter how many sort of lines it requires you to do in order to get the letter that you want. You just do however many you need. So I, again, consult my thing. I want this to be no wider than that. So I'm going to come back out through here, and now I'm going to go straight up. But it's a long way to the top. So I think, and rather than doing one long thing, I'm going to do two lines. I want to break up that long J line in 2 stitches, because if it's too long, it'll be too easy to kind of grab. And then I'm going to come from the top and join it in the middle. Hello, Tasha. Tasha's in the house. Tasha's has been a member for 13 months. Thank you, Tasha. Tasha says, good morning. I'm always glad to catch your lives. Thank you. My son is home for a mummy day. That's nice. And wanted to make sure I told you hi. Well, hello. Mummy days are great. And there we go. That's my J. Do I add a little topping to it? Let's see what that would look like. Just a couple stitches wide over top of it. All right, so there is my J. And I want to make sure that this isn't, yeah, it's not pulled too tightly. Yeah, there we go. So I think I will leave the cross across the top of it. I don't usually, but it does finish it off rather nicely. So there's my J, and I feel like I'm off to a pretty good start now. Hi, Vima. Vima's in the house too. Vima has been a member for 50 months. Thank you, Vima. Vima says, hi, Jayda. Really love the idea of the Unblanket this year's calendar blanket, as it's a chance for all of our creative horses to run wild and free. I agree. Totally. Don't mind me, I'm knocking stuff over here. It wouldn't be a regular day in the craft room if I wasn't making a tremendous noise and knocking something over. I am, if nothing else, somewhat klutzy. All right, gotta move my legs. Here we go. That is the J done. Let's move on to the A. Now, I'm up top, so I just need to kind of pop over to make, I need to make 2 straight angled lines, obviously. Nico! Nico has gifted another membership. Thank you so much, Nico. Goodness me, congratulations to Deanna. Welcome back. Stiggy Ann Blue? I want to say stingy. Stiggy Blue. I'm going to call you Blue. It says an unblanket, question mark? Yes, an unblanket. If you've missed the first few videos in this series, we have launched our 2025 calendar unblanket project. So you can make all of these rectangles and stitch them into a blanket if you want, or you can make all of these rectangles and create a bunch of wall hangings like I'm doing. I am making literally a calendar. I'm going to have sort of little titles. I might put the title in every single one of them. I might not. It depends on how I feel as the months roll by. I have general sketched out ideas for all 12 of my months so far, but this is a creative community. You guys always have a billion awesome ideas, and I am open to new and other suggestions as the months progress because I love it. I love the circle of inspiration. And I will not be joining all of my rectangles into a blanket, but you can. We have constructed this entire project so that you can make it a blanket if you wanted to, but I wanted an unblanket this year. And the best part of an unblanket is that there is 0 pressure. So if you make one, and then you poop out because you just got busy with life or you're tired or your Crojo flees, well, you've made a wall hanging and it's already a little finished project all on its own. So that is an unblanket project. Stig. That's what Nico says, Stig. My apologies if I got the name wrong. I am super at getting names wrong. It's a superpower of mine. All right, I am moving on to the A now. And again, this is what the back is going to look like. It's going to look messy. And I don't care because this is the inside of the applique, and the applique will be on my blanket piece, my unblanket canvas, and you will not see that. That's the whole point of the text box. So I need to make 2 long angled lines. I'm going to hop over just one little stitch and start the top of the A. I'm trying to be as efficient with the use of my yarn. So if I, excuse me, if I finish a stitch, or if I finish a letter up top, I'm going to start the next one up top too. And I'm also going to try really hard to not tangle any of my tails. All right, I need to come down on an angle. So if that's the angle, I'm going to come, there's nothing really in the way. You know what I can do too? Here's another little trick. If you want to make a nice long straight line and you don't want to do it in 2 like I did the J, even though I feel like that worked for the J, you can make the long straight line like this, and then you can anchor it. So just find about the midway point and bring your needle out underneath it, hop over it, and go right back through the same place that you brought your yarn out of. So bring your yarn all the way through, hop over and go back down. So you're literally tacking it in place. And this also serves to keep a nice long line or a long strand from getting grabbed or pulled. And sometimes if you want to make a nice long straight line and there's no neat and tidy way to do that because there's no, see with this, there was an even break right in between. So I was able to make a nice straight line. With this one, I didn't feel like there was a way, I would have had a slightly crooked line. So I can just make a nice long line and anchor it. And that puts me up in the middle. So I'm going to come over here. Again, let's consult. How wide does my A get to be? Looks like I'm already leaning into end territory. So I'm going to, is there a way to make this even? I might be able to bring that over a little bit. Or on the fly, I will just make my N a lot skinnier. I can do that too. Again, a template is just to kind of keep you on the right track. It doesn't have to be followed exactly. It's to just avoid having big problems. So there's an A. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to tack that in the middle because I need to put a little crossbar in the middle anyway. Okay, why do I keep grabbing that? There we go. Hi, Mela. Mela's in the house. Mela's been a member for 35 months. Thank you, Mela. Mela says, with a membership milestone, the twisting of the yarn is mimicking the chill font. Makes it look cold, which is fitting for January. Well, what a happy accident that is. Yes, I agree. It does look like it's kind of, looks a little bit chilly. This yarn is very twisty on its own, so it keeps wanting to kind of twist and snag on itself, which is probably why I have a lot of it left over, because I found it annoying to work with in the first place. But in little tiny bits like this, it's a good way to use up the scrap. So, how is my A looking here? There we go. So there is my A. It does look chilly. So I have to squeeze my N in. I might start my N right in the bottom of the A. So A, look at you. It's good to flip it over once in a while. Make sure you haven't got any loose bits at the back. There we go. I'm going to start my N. No, I'm not. I'm going to start it right next to the A, at the step next to it. Wow, look at me. I keep getting that. There we go. But I'm going to make my N a lot narrower, I think, than I intended to. So I'm going to do it in two pieces like I did the J, because it's a straight line going directly up, and I can kind of do that. The crochet allows it. And I'm going to come down from up here. And Dawn. Dawn's in the house too. Dawn, a member for 74 months. Goodness gracious. Thank you, Dawn. Dawn, with a membership milestone, says, good morning, InStitches family. Wishes for lots of crochet this year. Yes. I hope we all have time and the inclination to do lots of crochet this year. This is a year of fun and design, and I don't want anybody to feel left behind. There's me and my rhyme again. All right, so I need to make a nice narrow N, which I don't think will be a problem. I'm going to go, look at me, I keep getting this, I keep somehow getting over top of that. This is why you always check. All right. So I'm making a nice narrow middle line for the N. There's a lot of different ways to get lettering onto something, so I thought I would start with some basic embroidery for January, and then I definitely want to see about adding in, you know, different kinds, like, you know, chain stitching, or even just solid letters, maybe not even the whole word sometimes. Oh, I think I went too far over. I have to make this narrower. All right, I'll just pull that back out. I want it, well, I think I've gone too far over. Yeah, my N is now way over top of my J was pretty much on board, but my A slanted too much to the side. I think I'm gonna have to take this out. I'm gonna run out of room here. I don't want to do that. So let's take this out. I'm gonna fix my A, make it a little narrower, and see how I do. Hello, Masha. Masha is also in the house. Busy hands, Masha. Masha with a very sweet super chat. Thank you so much. Says, super busy day, but had to pop in. I'm also writing out the month's name. September has too many letters. It's so true. Some of these months are really long. I think writing in the short form, if you wanted to, is perfectly fine. I think, you know, you don't, and like I said, you may not need to write it in at all. There's something kind of enjoyable about taking out stitches when they flow so smoothly like this. So I feel like my A is just too wide. I should have corrected my A at the very beginning. But I kind of liked the way it looked, so I got caught up on how nice it looked. And so what I want to do is carefully pull all this out, because I don't want to cause knots. I don't want to create any undue fluffiness. And if I do it one stitch at a time, then I've got control. I won't accidentally like hurt my yarn. This is all part of the design process. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Taz says you could do the N first. I would do the U because it's in the middle, but I really believe in my ability, perhaps foolishly, to do this in one shot from left to right, probably because I've done it before. I think I just started my A a little too far over to the side. So I'm going to try it again here. Nico says, I felt so old yesterday. I heard a guy in his 20s say he'd never heard of Kid Rock. Oh, I know. These little moments when somebody, some younger member of the family listens to one of your favorite albums and goes, are those like old guys? And you go, oh. Ouch. All right, I am almost back to beginning my A again, and I'm going to move it over. I'm going to move it over. I'm going to start it right where the edge of the top of the J is, because, or I might split that little stitch in half, because I need to cram the letters in a little bit better than I was doing. So here we go. How quick can I do this? Let's see, I gotta make sure my tinsel hasn't fully left. There we go. Okay, so back to the finishing J. I came through right here. Let's get this out of the way. So I want my A to be really, really close. I need it to basically start in the same place that the J did. So if that's the case, I'm actually going to take this out. I'm going to cross the J from the other direction. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to cross the J. I'm still going to cross the top of the J, but I'm going to cross it from the other direction. So that way I can go in through the same stitch, the same sort of the side of the J cross, the cross at the top, and I can start my A from that stitch instead. So here we go. And this will allow me to butt my letters up together. There we go. See? So I can cross it from right from here. And I'm going to go down on a bit of an angle. I might be able to get a two-piece line this time, just from the angle that I'm at. And I'll come up from down here. Or will I do the side of the J? How's that look? No, I don't like that. I'm also kind of, I'm not going to use the word hindered, although that was the one that jumped to mind, but I am kind of throttled by the wiggle in this yarn. So because this yarn has like a bit of a wiggle to it, it does kind of stop me from, it's an added attribute that I have to consider while I'm crocheting. What did I do here? Oh. There we go. So I think I will just put that over there. I think I will do the one long line. Don't mind me, guys. This is me thinking on my feet and doing it as I go. I kind of like the process, which is another reason these live streams are a lot different than a regular video, because you see a lot of the process. I know what I want to do. I know how to do it. I just gotta fiddle my way through it. All right, so I'm gonna do that whole like anchoring thing. So I did one long line, and now I'm gonna anchor it like I did the last time. There we go. And then I'm going to do another long line. Making a nice narrow A. I'm going to anchor it over here. And he says, I love watching you do and undo. I feel like I turn into a crazy person when I have to do and redo. Now I feel normal. Oh yeah. I don't think anybody, well, I mean, I guess some people get it right the first time. I get the odd thing right the first time, but I think part of the process of being a creative person is enjoying the process. Like I mean, at least that's how it is for me. I don't know how it is for all of you. But I like this. If I get a few stitches into something and I think, no, I don't like that, I'm not just going to carry on. I'm going to go, well, how can I make it better? How can I make it into something that says, you know, what I want it to? I kind of like and now I'm looking at it as actual font, and it does kind of look like Chiller, but it also kind of looks like Jagged Ice, which is kind of a happy accident, isn't it? Since I've got sort of a cold Arctic sky happening here. Okay, now my A is much better situated, but I think I still need to start my N at the bottom of where my A is in order to get my U, which I'm going to make a little skinnier, to fit in properly. So I can start my N right down here where my A is. And I'm going to do a 2-piece. Can I do that? Is that too much of an angle? That looks like it might be too much of an angle. Yep, it's too much of an angle. Okay, I promise the rest of the letters are not going to be this slow. No, I think I can afford to go over one stitch. Now that I've made that A nice and skinny, okay. We are going to make the U skinnier than I drew it, which is fine. And I'm going to start the N one stitch over. I will make the N skinny. Oops. I just split my yarn. I did. All right, so I'm going to go over one stitch, and I'm going to hastily stick in an N. Here we go. So I'm going to go straight up, and I'm going to anchor it. Do I want to do that? Yes. bisect that little stitch there. There we go. And I think I'll get all my long stitches in first before I go back and anchor them, just to make sure that I like the layout. Like I said, skinny end. Okay. So there's my N. See how the yarn really twists and then it doesn't? It's so funny. So now I want to make sure that all of those long lines stay put. So I'm going to put little anchors on them. I'm going to try and make them look as tiny as possible. Thank you so much for picking up a pattern. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And the last one. There we go. All right, so my two, let's make that anchor a little tighter. There we go. That looks N-ish. I think I can make that anchor a bit smaller. Why does that look like it's... This yarn is a real trial. Goodness me. All right. I didn't make that last little anchor tiny enough. Oh, looks like I came through the same place. That might be why. Let's make that a little tighter. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to anchor this. Can I anchor that somewhere else? I don't want to anchor it in the same place. Maybe up high? Let's see if I can do that. Yeah, sure, that'll do. J-A-N. Let's get a U in there. So we're going to make a nice narrow U all the way down to the bottom. Nice long line. I'll go back and anchor it later. A little narrow bottom to it. And I'm going to get some of my sizing back, making a very narrow little U. And right back up the top. Okay, so J-A-N-U. We are going to just yank on these a little bit so I can, there we go. And I'm going to anchor these little guys. Well, I'm really glad to hear that some of you don't mind seeing the process because I feel like watching process helps. I love watching long form content when people are sewing and they make a mistake and they show you that they made a mistake and then they take it out and then they show you what they did to fix it, or they showed you the alternate angle, because I find that infinitely helpful. I love to see people's process. It also helps me to identify, like if I'm getting up to something and I go, oh, this doesn't feel right, or this does feel right, but it looks strange. Helping to seeing someone else's process helps immeasurably, in my opinion. So, you know, not everybody learns that way. I do. I love to see process. Janu. There, I think we're back on track. That narrow little U has sort of made it look a little bit more like it's supposed to. And I'm moving around here. Okay. Another A. Let's do another A. Same thing. I think I've got room now to go over. And I'm going to do the 2 long lines like I did the last time. On an angle. And I love Ys because you can make Ys wide or skinny depending on what you've got room for. Nico, our gifting ninja, swooping in on a U. Thank you to gift another membership. Thank you so much, and congratulations to KP320. Welcome to the family. And I'm going to just get this tie out of the way. I'm going to anchor both of my A lines before I put in the cross. And if you can manage it, I do find it helpful to, like, this is why embroidery hoops exist. I try to hold it so that I'm holding the part that I'm working into a little on the taut side. And that's the little cross on the A. So January, and now I'm going to start the R down here, go straight up, give it just a tiny little stay stitch in the middle. There we go. And R's often need a whole bunch of little lines. So you need like a little short line across, and then a little short line down. I think I could have made that one longer. Let's make that one longer. Oops. Regina says, Jada, you can anchor each letter starting at the middle of the Y by picking up small threads from the white back to the J. It's making it. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, from the back. Doing it from the back. Yes. Is that what you mean? Doing it from the back? Did I say that twice? I'm not. On a straighter, thinner yarn, this often doesn't look as wiggly, but this yarn also is kind of making things, like, it makes the little anchor stitches a little on the thicker side. I don't actually mind though, I have to say, because this is turning into kind of a neat font given that it's kind of cold. So there's my R, and then I'm going to stick my Y in here, January, and I'm just going to have enough room to do a straight line halfway up for my Y, and then I'm going to do an angled line coming down to it, and one from over here. And there we go, January. So let's just pull this out a little bit. There's my, you know what, not bad. I kind of followed it. My Y, looks like everything got a little bit shorter. You know what, I'm gonna make my Y a little taller. I was making my letters a little shorter towards the end. I don't know why. Haha, why? So I'm just going to make my Y a little taller just so that it kind of looks like it matches with the J. Again, I don't really mind taking stuff out. Yes, coming from the back. Yes, that makes sense. In fact, it would probably be really well, like really hidden if I used a needle and thread as opposed to the yarn, especially because this yarn is thick. But I don't know. I kind of like the what they say. I call it a happy accent. Just that weird thickness kind of creates a little bit of an interest. Yeah, all the way up here and then back down to here again. Okay, that's better. January. And I can pull some of these little stay stitches so that they're a little bit smaller. Yep. More or less, I got the word January. Now, that's embroidery, basic straight lines with a bit of yarn. It's kind of, I don't know, I kind of like it. It's a little bit, it's not as smooth as it would have been if I'd used like a nice thick yarn or if I'd used one of the smoother things, but I do like how this worked out. And what I'm doing is I'm just running it back underneath some of the threads on the back so that I get close to my beginning string, and I'm just going to tie the two ends together, not tightly at all, just make a little knot. I'll do it one more time, and then I'll trim that, and that I am now going to stitch onto my canvas. So this can go back into my bag of scraps. Mr. is on puppy duty, Maria, yes. Happy Monday, everybody. If you're just joining us, welcome, welcome. Today we're making a very basic text box, and I am showing you one way, the laborious way perhaps, to embroider some basic lettering onto it and, you know, to give yourself a bit of a template to work from. I'm really glad I did that because who knows where I would have wound up if I hadn't. Sandy's asking if I'm going to do all the months in this white. No, I may not even add the name to all the months. I've got so many ideas for each individual month. This year, I'm telling you, this is a doozy project because I really wanted to unhook the wild horses, as Vima said, and just let them race this year. And so I pictured January as an Arctic scene. The polar bear was chosen by the family members. I asked which animal most made them think of January, and more people said polar bear or bear. And so I created an applique based on the feedback from the family. This was not even the original plan. I was maybe thinking about doing a cute little snowman instead, but I love the polar bear. I love the polar bear. This feels so big. I mean, polar bears are incredible. And to be fair, I've done cute little like snowman things. And you know, there's nothing saying that you couldn't also have a snowman in there. What if the polar bear was making a snowman? I don't know. It's your story. So there's all these different things that I want to do this year. And I'm also going to be using a lot of the feedback from you guys, because already, can I just say, the comments on the 2 January videos are delicious. Just the flood of ideas for appliques and colors. It's just going to be so much fun. I can't wait to see what you guys do with this project as much as I can't wait for you to see my ideas. This is just going to be such a fun year. Okay, so here's my little text box. Another nice thing with text box is that you can plunk them in anywhere you want. I really did have the idea of like January, the calendar page, kind of like, you know, in my head. So I'm going to stitch this in right in the very top middle, kind of like you would have a calendar page. And I'm going to do this the same way I did. So if you need help, because this is going to be dark on dark, I am using the exact same method that I did in the January part 2 video, which went up on Saturday. This is how you stitch an applique onto something. You just basically hold it in place, make sure that it doesn't move. That's why I check every couple of stitches. And then you're just grabbing the top facing loop of your canvas and the next stitch along the applique, and you just go all the way around. And you just keep pausing. You know, if you need to, you can sort of pick it up. You see what I'm doing? I'm grabbing the top facing loop. Now this is blue on blue. So technically if you stitched all the way through, it really wouldn't show all that much, but I like the habit. I like to be in the habit of doing my stitching this way. It just makes things much tidier, much neater, and I'm in the habit. So if I am stitching something of a completely different color onto my canvas, you're not going to see it because I'm using the top facing loops of the canvas. And you do get quick at this. You do get quick. You don't have to necessarily do every single stitch when you're just dealing with a nice solid rectangle like this, making sure it doesn't move. I find it helpful if you're working close to the edge to just pick the whole thing up. I think stars embroidered in the sky would be nice, as Catherine. I absolutely agree. In fact, I posted some finished canvases from the community on our community tab before the live stream today. So if you haven't had a chance to check those out, be sure to pop over to the community tab. And pretty sure there's a link in the description box for the community. And it's a public post so everybody can see it. I want everybody to see everybody's awesome work. And Carol put some beaded stars in her sky. And I've got a couple more finished canvases coming that I'm going to show you guys from the community, where other people have sort of added some stars. Nico added a moon to hers. We have a moon applique, and that will be included in our applique playlist. So if you want to add a little moon, and it's a very simple, small little moon. Sky's the limit, quite literally. You could also, if you were sort of using a speckled, blue with a bit of white yarn, that would have been a great choice for the sky because it would have looked like you had little speckly stars kind of built in. You can do anything you want. Anything at all. Which I love that. I love that about these projects. I'm also trying to make sure that I don't pull too tightly on my yarn as I stitch, just enough that the stitch itself kind of disappears, but not too tightly that I'm going to end up pulling anything out of alignment. Like I don't want to stretch the stitches on my canvas. I don't want to accidentally stretch my applique. So I pause and make sure I'm not doing that. This looks like it's going on pretty neatly. And you can see what I mean by I'm grabbing a top facing loop on the canvas and the next loop on the applique itself. And I'm trying to grab loops that sit directly or almost directly beneath the stitch on the applique. Like I said, this is all ironed out in our January part 2 video, which went up on Saturday. And I'm just going to keep referring people back to that. In fact, if you are busy in the chat, or in the comments section this year on this project, and you see people kind of asking about details like how to sew on the applique or how to build the actual, or the counts and the sort of the basic build of the canvas, please feel free to pop in and redirect them to the 2 January tutorials. I will always have them linked in the description box, and they will always be part of the 2025 Unblanket Calendar playlist, which will also be in the description box. It's just some people kind of, think they've missed something, or they don't necessarily know how to get into the description box. That's another thing too. So just so everybody feels like they can catch up, please feel free to add that info in if you see somebody kind of lost in the community. And also, if you finish, or you think you finished one of your canvases and you start seeing what other people have done, do not be afraid to continue to add to it. So I really like the idea of stars. I really like the idea of snowflakes. And I'm still not entirely sure that I'm not going to add a few snowflakes, but I'm not sure if I want to do thread crochet versions of our little snowflake pattern. I love the idea that Carol did with like the little beads, you know, maybe like a little tiny bit of like white to kind of make it look like there's a bit of a twinkle happening to it. I've got so much stuff in my stash, my craft stash included, that because this isn't going to be a blanket, because this is going to be hanging on the wall, because I can go texture and mixed media crazy if I want to, I've got felt, I've got beads, I've got embroidery floss, I've got little buttons. There's so many things. I might want to add a couple of those little things. I might stitch a couple of cute little buttons on. In fact, I think I have snowflake buttons. I might add a few of those. So don't be afraid to, like, you know, even like 6 months from now, if you're sort of, you know, wandering through your favorite craft place, or if you know, are in a Joann's that's having a big sort of like sell off, and you find something that suits a previous month that you've done, well, for heaven's sakes, feel free to go back and retro add stuff to it, because this is that kind of a project. You can totally do it. Susan has gifted a membership. Thank you so much, Susan. Congratulations to Dorothy. Welcome back to the family. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you. All right, when you've finished stitching on an applique, I always like to do one last little stitch, usually in the same place that I started. One last one, just to make sure there's no corner I want to turn up. I grab a loop on the edge of the applique. I make a loop in my sewing yarn, and then I make a nice tight little knot, and then weave that tail in, usually underneath some of the same stitches on the applique, because I want to keep the same colored yarn in the same colored stitches as much as I can, because it makes it sort of just disappear. And this is pretty tight because it's single crochet, so I don't feel like I've got to go back and forth very much, even though that is a slightly slippier yarn. My tension's kind of on the tight side, so I'm just going to go weave in about 2 inches or 5 centimeters worth of tail, and that's it. And that little text box kind of blends into the rest of my sky. Hi, Joe! Thanks so much for picking up a pattern. And of course, you cannot see any stitching on the back. So the back of this rectangle is still nice and tidy and clean, and there's no stitching. And now my January unblanket rectangle looks like a little, it's starting to look like a little calendar picture. And I might add buttons, I might add beads, I'm not sure. If I do, I will take a picture and share it, but as of right now, which is Monday, January 22nd at 12:18 in the afternoon Eastern, this is my January unblanket rectangle, and if it continues to grow over the year, so be it. I love it. That is the whole point of this project. Unleash your creative horses. Let's go. Yes, I got it, my sweet. Yep. Thank you, Mr. InStitches, popping in here. All right, everybody. This glitter Jayda, how about glitter snowflake buttons on each side of the month? Yes. Now, I don't have glitter snowflake buttons, but if you do, yes, Debbie, do it. I think you should do whatever your little heart tells you January wants. I think you should lay things out. I think you should try stuff. I think you should go, I don't know, what do I think? What do I think? I want a floating snowman? Do I want, some pretty little stars? Pull your beads out, and just try things. There's no wrong answer to how you do this. And my gosh, this is just January. Wait until you see what's coming. But today I wanted to cover how to make a text box and how to do some basic embroidery. I'm happy that you were able to see my process. It's, a little bit slow, but there we go. I finally got the word January in, and that is just very plain, straight line embroidery, nothing fancy. There are other ways to add lettering, which we will cover as the year progresses, but that is one way to do it. And if you want to add a text box, that's the basic text box description. So, and the text box is included in the canvas pattern that we have up in our Etsy shop. How to do the embroidery and whatnot is not included. There's a couple of tips, but mostly I want to leave this up to you because you maybe don't want to do that. Maybe you want to do something else or something like chain stitching. We do have how to do chain stitching tutorials on the channel, but we will be doing more of those as we go because my gosh, there are so many neat techniques that you can use in this year's project. Wow. This is just the start. So here we go. That's January. For me, January wound up being a nice Arctic scene with a polar bear. Thank you. Please keep the photographs coming. I love all your polar bears and I love all of your January canvases. They are so cute. If you haven't seen the other pictures that I've posted so far, keep an eyeball on our community tab because that's where I love to post everybody's pictures of the ongoing projects we have. And it is just, if you're looking for some inspiration, if you're looking for some color theory, if you're looking for anything, check out what the rest of the community is doing because this community is amazing. We are the most creative bunch on the internet. I swear. So yeah, keep those photos coming. You can send them to us at the Etsy shop. You just go to our Etsy shop by clicking on the link, find message or contact seller. And in the message box, you can add a little picture by clicking on either your phone icon, the little camera icon, or on your computer, it would be the little landscape box that's inside the text message box. Cheryl upgraded her membership. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you so much. Keep the ideas coming. Keep the ideas for all of it coming. I'm talking colors. I'm talking use of beads and buttons. Whatever pops into your head, write it down. Include it in the comments section because you have no idea what might be coming. And for your own fun, grab those Ziploc bags, sort through your stash. Now it's not just yarn. Now it's maybe other things and kind of pull stuff out. Think to yourself, oh, that really feels like February. Ooh, that really looks like July. Think about your birthday month. What's your birthday month mean to you? Do you want to celebrate your birthday month this year with something? You know, maybe you should. This year, it's all about just going nuts and whatever the month means to you. We have a ton of appliques. We've got a lot of technique tutorials and we have so many more to come. This year is going to be just so much fun. I don't want to wish the year away. I don't, but wow. Goody. All right, my dears, have a wonderful week. We will see you Friday for a completely unrelated video, a totally new tutorial. So stay tuned for that. Something nice and cozy and stay safe and crafty. Stay safe, stay crafty, stay cozy, all the good stuff. We'll see you guys on Friday. Bye-bye.